let me ask you something, and I want you to actually think about this one, not just keep scrolling. How much money have you saved in the last 12 months? Like, actually saved, moved into an account, and left there. Not money that came in and went right back out on something you barely remember buying. Not the balance you had for 3 days before your car registration was due. Real, sitting there, working for you savings. If the honest answer makes you a little uncomfortable, you're not alone. Not even close. But here's what I want you to understand. For most people, the problem isn't that they don't make enough money to save. The problem is that they're making a handful of very specific, very fixable mistakes that are silently draining their savings potential month after month. And the frustrating part? Most of these mistakes feel completely reasonable. They feel like smart decisions, actually, which is exactly why people keep making them for years without realizing what's happening. I've seen this pattern over and over. People who are genuinely trying, who are doing some things right, but who have these quiet little leaks in their financial boat that are keeping them from ever really getting ahead. And today we're going to find every single one of them and plug them. We're covering 5 savings mistakes that are probably costing you more than you think. Not in a vague, you should budget better way. In a specific, here's the actual dollar amount this is costing you way. Because once you see the real numbers, it's pretty hard to keep doing the same thing. My name is Tate, and I break down personal finance in plain language for people who are tired of feeling behind and ready to actually do something about it. If you're working hard, but your savings account doesn't seem to reflect that, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button if honest, practical, money content is what you need more of. All right, let's talk about why getting this right matters so much right now, in this specific moment in time. The savings rate in America is genuinely alarming. As of recent data, the personal savings rate, meaning the percentage of disposable income that Americans actually save, has been sitting around 3% to 4%. To put that in perspective, in the 1970s and 1980s, Americans routinely saved 10% to 15% of their income. We have gone backwards dramatically. Yeah, and we've done it during a period when the stakes of not saving have never been higher. Here's what most people don't realize. We are in the middle of a retirement savings crisis that most people won't fully feel until it's too late to do much about it. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances found that the median retirement savings for Americans between 55 and 64 years old, people who are either approaching retirement or in the early stages of it, is approximately $134,000. The median, meaning half of people in that age range have less than that. And $134,000 if you retire at 65 and live to 85, works out to about $6,700 a year, or roughly $558 a month. That is not a retirement. That is a financial emergency that unfolds slowly over 20 years. And it's not just retirement. Just a 2023 Bankrate survey found that 57% of Americans couldn't cover an unexpected $1,000 expense from savings without borrowing money or selling something. More than half. $1,000. That's not a catastrophic emergency. That's a car repair, a medical copay, a broken appliance, and most people don't have it liquid. The reality is that these numbers aren't the result of people being irresponsible or careless. They're the result of systematic, repeated mistakes that compound over time, small, wrong decisions made consistently that add up to an enormous gap between where people are and where they need to be. And the terrifying thing about compounding, which we'll talk about more in a minute, is that it works in both directions. Good habits maintained over time produce extraordinary results, but bad habits, maintained over time, produce an equally extraordinary whole. If you've been feeling like you're trying but not getting traction, there's a real reason for that. And it is fixable, but you have to know what you're actually dealing with. So let's get into the mistakes, starting with the one that almost everyone is making, that almost nobody talks about. Mistake number 1 is keeping your savings in the wrong place. And I'm not talking about stuffing cash in a mattress, although if you're doing that, please stop. I'm talking about the fact that most people keep their savings in a big national bank, checking, or savings account that pays them somewhere between 0.01% and 0.5% interest annually, while high-yield savings accounts at online banks have been paying 4.5% to 5.5% annually. That gap is not a small thing. on $10,000 in savings, a 0.1% account earns you $10 a year. A 5% account earns you $500 a year. That's $490 you're just leaving on the table because you haven't moved your money. It takes about 15 minutes to open a high-yield savings account. You can do it on your phone. The FDIC insurance is the same. Your money is just as safe. The only difference is whether your bank is quietly keeping the interest for itself or whether you're getting paid for it. And before you say, well, rates will come down eventually, yes, they might. But even at 3%, you're still earning 30 times what most traditional savings accounts pay. This one is simple. Just move the money. But here's where it gets interesting because mistake number 2 is actually the sneakiest one on this list. It's saving what's left over instead of saving first. This is how the vast majority of people approach saving. They get paid, they pay their bills, they spend on whatever the month requires, and then at the end, and if there's anything left, they move it to savings. And the problem is, there's almost never anything left. Not because they didn't have the money, but because spending naturally expands to fill available income. It's not a willpower problem. It's just how human psychology works. If money is in your checking account, it feels available, and your brain will find ways to use it. The fix is automatic transfers set to go out on payday before you have a chance to spend the money. Even $200 a month, saved consistently for 30 years and invested at an average 8% return, grows to over $300,000. And the same $200 a month that disappears when you try to save it manually at the end of the month. The only difference is the system. Pay yourself first, automate it, and let your spending adjust to what's left rather than the other way around. This single change made once is worth more than almost any other financial habit you could build. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what if my budget is already too tight to save anything? And I hear that. But here's what I'd push back on. Most people who feel like they have nothing left to save have never done a genuine audit of their recurring subscriptions and automatic charges. I'm talking about going through your last 3 months of bank statements, line by line. The average American spends over $200 per month on subscriptions, according to a 2022 survey by C+R Research. And the same survey found that people underestimate their subscription spending by about 2.5 times, meaning most people think they're spending around $80 a month on subscriptions and they're actually spending $200. Streaming services, apps, gym memberships, meal kit boxes that you forgot you paused and then forgot you unpaused. It adds up faster than you think, and a lot of it is going to things you barely use. Cancel the things you don't use. Downgrade the things you only kind of use. That $100 or $150 a month becomes your automatic savings transfer, and suddenly the budget isn't as tight as it felt. Here's the part that will blow your mind. Mistake number 3 is saving without any clear purpose or target. And this sounds like a soft, motivational problem. But it's actually a behavioral finance issue with real financial consequences. When you have a vague savings goal, I want to save more, or I'm trying to build an emergency fund, your brain doesn't treat that money as particularly sacred. It's easy to dip into. It's easy to rationalize spending it. But when your savings are organized into specific named funded buckets with clear targets, the psychology completely shifts. You're not robbing your savings account, you're robbing your emergency fund, your vacation fund, your car replacement fund. Named things feel different. They feel like they belong to something, which makes it much harder to casually spend them. The practical version of this is opening multiple savings accounts. Most online banks let you do this for free and name each one. You have your emergency fund target, 3 to 6 months of expenses, which for the average American household means somewhere between $15,000 and $30,000. You have your short-term goal fund, whatever that looks like for you, and you have your sinking funds for predictable, irregular expenses like car maintenance, medical bills, holiday gifts, home repairs. These aren't surprises, they're known expenses that most people just don't plan for, which is why they end up on a credit card at 24% interest every single time. Naming your money and giving it a job is not fluffy advice. It's the difference between savings that stays saved and savings that evaporates. Mistake number 4 is treating an emergency fund like a nice-to-have, instead of the absolute foundation of every other financial goal. Yeah, I cannot tell you how many people I've seen make this mistake. They want to invest, they want to pay off debt, they want to save for a house, all legitimate goals, but they're doing all of that without any financial buffer underneath them. And then one thing goes wrong. A job loss, a medical bill, a car transmission, and suddenly they're pulling money out of investments at a loss, taking on new high-interest debt, or completely derailing whatever progress they'd made. An emergency fund isn't a place where your money goes to do nothing. It's insurance. It's the thing that makes every other financial goal possible because it means one bad month doesn't become a bad year. 3 months of expenses minimum. 6 months is better if your income is variable or your job security feels uncertain. That money lives in that high-yield savings account we talked about, and it does not get touched for anything that isn't a genuine emergency. So here's what this actually means when you zoom all the way out and look at these 5 mistakes together. Let's talk about a real scenario. 2 people, same income, same starting point, $50,000 a year, nothing saved, age 25. Person A makes the mistakes we've talked about, saves whatever's left, keeps it in a 0.1% savings account, has no clear goals, no emergency fund, subscriptions slowly bleeding their budget. They manage to save about $100 a month on average, and it sits in a regular savings account growing at basically nothing. Over 40 years, they have about $48,000. Person B fixes all 5 mistakes. Automates $400 a month on payday. That's the $100, plus the $200 from canceled subscriptions, plus the interest they're now earning put back to work, moves everything to a high-yield account, and eventually into investments, and doesn't derail their progress every time something unexpected happens, because they have an emergency fund absorbing the shocks. That $400 a month invested at an average 8% return over 40 years becomes roughly $1.3 million. Same income, same time period. The only difference is the habits and the systems. That is not a small number. That is the difference between retiring with options and retiring with stress. And this is where everything changes, and because none of those individual changes are dramatic, none of them require a huge income or a windfall or some financial genius move. They're just small, inconsistent corrections that compound over decades into completely different outcomes. Mistake number 5, by the way, is the one that ties all of this together, waiting for the perfect time to start. There is no perfect time. There will always be a reason why this month isn't ideal. Student loans, rent is too high, something came up. You're going to start fresh in January. And meanwhile, the most powerful variable in personal finance, which is time, keeps slipping away. Compound interest is genuinely magical, but it requires time to work. Every year you delay costs you more than the year before because you're not just missing the year's savings. You're missing all the future growth that money would have generated. Starting with $50 a month right now beats starting with $500 a month in 5 years. Start now with whatever you have. Here's how to take everything we covered and actually do something with it this week. Move your savings to a high-yield account. Just Google best high-yield savings accounts and pick one with FDIC insurance and a rate above 4%. Takes 15 minutes. Set up an automatic transfer for payday, even if it's $50 to start. Name your accounts and decide what each one is for. Go through your last 3 months of statements and cancel every subscription you don't actively use. And commit to building your emergency fund to at least 1 month of expenses before doing anything else with your savings. None of this is complicated. It just requires doing it. And the version of you 2 years from now, sitting on an actual emergency fund with automatic savings building quietly every month, is going to feel completely different about money than the version of you that keeps putting this off. You've got everything you need. Now use it. If this gave you something real to work with today, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Subscribe if you want to keep building on this, and I'll see you in the next one.